Hi everyone. Let me get set up again here. Okay, so in the last little video I was talking about post and lintel structures and how they become used then for early forms of architecture. So the two I wanted to focus on are Newgrange and Stonehenge. So this is Newgrange in Ireland, and it's about maybe an hour north of Dublin in Ireland, and it's dated to circa 3000 to 2500 BCE. So that's in now, again, the Neolithic time period where we have settlements, people are settled, they're farmers, very different way of life than in the Paleolithic time period and the hunters and gatherers. We're looking down through one of the main corridor into the burial chamber, the main burial chamber. So let's look at this and analyze a few things, or I'll point out a few things. First, look at the ceiling here, and if I go back one image, you'll see that this structure is what we would say is a corbelled underground burial chamber. It's got stones that are stacked on either side and then one large stone on the top that is holding everything together. So you see that? So we have these stacked stones. We have incising, or the scratching or carving into the rock of these spirals. They had no written language, the people that created this, so we really don't know what this symbolized, but we do have spirals like this all over the area of what would be today Ireland and England. And spirals like this appear in many civilizations, early civilizations, and they usually have something to deal with, like the cycles of life, the reoccurrence of birth and death, the seasons, something like that, right? And because this is a burial chamber where people were buried, we can kind of make that assumption that maybe it has something to do with that. But again, no written language, so we really can't tell for sure. In this burial chamber, there were shelves, and on the shelves were bones. And so we can assume that these bones are going to be people that were very important in the society, not the average person. So they would have been the chiefs or chieftains in the society that were placed on these shelves. And at the winter solstice and the summer solstice, the sunlight will come down this main corridor that we're looking through into the burial chamber and light up the chamber. So like many of these early civilizations, they figured out how to align these things with the sun by studying the stars. And so this marks different times of the year for the people, and it could be then used in a way as a calendar. It could be that the sun coming into the chamber was a way that maybe the spirit of the person was taken to the afterlife, something like that. Because for these early farmers, sunlight, of course, is going to be super important for them, because without the sun, they're not going to be able to produce food. So most of these early civilizations, the most important god or goddess was the god of the sun. All right, so let's jump over, not too far, to Stonehenge, which is located in the Salisbury Plain, which is about an hour and a half west of London in England. So not actually too far from Newgrange. And this is probably the most famous of the Neolithic structures in this section of Europe. And so these large standing stones like this, which are post and lintel structure, you can see two posts and a lintel across the top. They're very large, and they form what is known as a megalith. And so we have these structures that are created in these circles for Stonehenge. This is a reconstruction of it. We have the inner circle and the outer circle. This is the most well known, but these are actually found all over this area. And in fact, we see here in this reconstruction, there is a ancient road that goes off from Stonehenge. I'll talk about that in just a second. And it's called a henge because of the way the standing stones are placed in this megalith kind of configuration, and then this ditch that is dug around it. Why was this created this way? Again, no written language at this time in this civilization, so we cannot be sure 100%, but we do know some things. We know that stone was associated with the dead, and if you went down this road, it crossed the river Avon, and there was a settlement on the other side of the river, and they had a henge there, very similar, that was created out of wood, and wood was associated with the living. So we had the living side and then the side that was associated with the dead. And it is believed that when somebody of great importance died, they would have been brought across the river and then down this ancient road to this site. And beyond that, it's not quite sure what happened. We have found bodies in the area. We're not sure if these were in fact the people that were of great importance that were had died and brought here. It's very unclear at this moment, and there's been some more recent findings in the area around Ireland over the last couple of years, so it's ongoing research. We know that just like Newgrange, at the winter and the summer solstice, the sun will come down and be in the inner part of the inner circle, and so this can be a calendar. It can be used as a calendar to mark the growing, planting, and the harvesting season. It can be some kind of ritual, spiritual site. It's probably something along the lines of both. The inner circle is made out of a blue stone that was quarried or taken more than 150 miles away in Wales. So it's quite amazing that these people without, wheels, cars, things like this, that they're able to actually get these stones here because they weigh so much, tons. I mean, we're talking tons. So this is actually was created at the very end of a small ice age. And so it's believed that part of the land was still frozen, and they more or less built giant sleds and then pulled the sleds with the stones on them across the land, which still would be extremely difficult to do, but it certainly makes more sense than them just with brute force being able to pull these things across the ground. That would have been pretty impossible. Okay, so we have these things that are taking place in Europe, like this, and this Stonehenge, the building of Stonehenge, coincides with the building of the pyramids in Giza, Egypt. So we have the Egyptian civilization at this time period has written language all around the Mediterranean. There are trade routes that have been set up. So very different depending on where you are in the world as far as the location of what is going on. And this has led to some really crazy things that people have said about with like the pyramids in Egypt, that they were built by aliens, okay, that aliens came down and they built the pyramids. This is not true. Okay, what happened was people of European descent said, look at the civilization like the Egyptians. This is a perfect example. And this is what the Europeans were doing. They were building something like this, and they had no written language. And then we looked Egyptian, and they seemed so much more advanced, and yet they're not of European descent, right? So therefore, they couldn't have been smart enough, innovative enough to create something so sophisticated. So it must have been aliens. Aliens helped them. Aliens from outer space came and helped them. It is such a racist claim, because it's just saying that those people were not smart enough or innovative enough to create these things because they are not of European descent. So when you hear aliens came and built the pyramids in Egypt, aliens came and helped the Mayans build their temples, it is not true. And in fact, it's extremely racist claim. So we want to do away with all of that. Don't believe any of that. Don't watch any more of that on the History Channel. It's all not true, okay? So I want to make that really clear to you from the beginning of the class, right? So that's it for the Neolithic time period, and I hope that you have enjoyed these little short videos I'm making, and I will see you again soon.